Hi, this is the Blue Knight 590, and so I wanted to make a video before the end of the year, but I didn't want to do a full scripted and editing video because I'm still stuck writing the script for my next video, which will be a analysis on Riku and Terra from Kingdom Hearts. So I decided just to do a vlog style video talking about the moments that made my favorite stories for me my favorite stories. So the first moment will be my favorite moment from my favorite story of all time, which is the ending of Kingdom Hearts 3. And so Kingdom Hearts has been like one of my favorite video game series for a long time, since Kingdom Hearts 1. I think it all started. I think the thing that sort of got me into the series was that was when I saw a cutscene of the ending on YouTube, and just the scene of like Sora saying Kingdom Hearts is light. That iconic moment, like near the ending, where the doors of darkness open and Ansem is destroyed by the light of Kingdom Hearts. Like, something about that moment just really spoke to me as a kid, and ever since then I've been sort of like interested in the series, and eventually it became my favorite series of all time. And Kingdom Hearts 3 was the game that sort of just became my favorite piece of media of all time. And I think the moment that sort of solidified that made it my all-time favorite story is the ending, because like it sort of embodies everything I love about Kingdom Hearts. Because Kingdom Hearts is like, at its core, a story about friendship, but also about saying goodbye to those people, saying goodbye to your friends. Because like Kingdom Hearts is very much a series that like acknowledges a sort of sad truth about life, that you're always going to have to say goodbye to the people you love. And this is very apparent throughout like not only the game's endings, which all involve some form of separation. Like Kingdom Hearts 1, Sora says goodbye to Kairi. Kingdom Hearts in Chain of Memories, he says goodbye to Naminé. And in Kingdom Hearts 2, even though Sora, Riku, and Kairi are reunited, Axel and Roxas are still separated. And an important thing to note about Sora's friendship with Donald and Goofy is that their bond is sort of like, by its very nature, one that inevitably will have to end in separation. Because like the reason why they came together, the reason why they're going on the adventures together, is to sort of like save their friends. But because they live in different worlds, by the time the adventure ends, they're going to have to say goodbye. Which I think is very interesting, because they're kind of like the main trio of the series. So I very much like how they tie into the series themes by being a bond that, by its very nature, will have to end in separation. And so Kingdom Hearts 3's ending, I think, embodies all of this very well, because the fact that like Sora is able to reunite everyone, he's able to save everyone, and even is able to like come to an understanding with Xehanort. Like, instead of in previous games in which he just sort of like destroyed the different versions of Xehanort, this time Sora is able to like sort of like impart his ideals onto Xehanort and sort of like earns Xehanort's trust, thus gaining the Keyblade. And this also in turn helps Xehanort sort of like be able to finally pass on with his own best friend Ericus, and that couldn't have happened without Sora like sort of imparting his ideals onto Xehanort and like sort of giving Xehanort faith in the world again. And I love all that. But I think especially what I love is that like Sora at the end, in order to achieve this happy ending, in order to bring back everyone who's lost, especially Kairi, who straight up died, he ends up breaking a rule, and he ends up breaking the fabric of reality, and thus is like punished by being erased from reality. And I think what makes that so good is not only because of the connection to the series themes of like friendship and separation, but it's also like a very good case of Sora's character. Because like a vital part of Sora's character is that he will like always step in to help somebody, who will always do the right thing, no matter the consequences he himself will have to face them. Like Sora does not care if there's a rule saying he can't save somebody. Like, if the universe itself tells Sora he can't save someone, he's gonna save them anyway, because he does not care about a rule that like sort of like puts people in danger, or like prevents him from helping people. He just won't follow those rules. And Sora is like, not only does he do something so reckless just to help his friends, to help the woman he arguably loves, but also the fact that he doesn't regret it, because in the ending you see Sora smiling, like he sort of accepted his fate. And he's like, he he's kind of happy about it, and I think that's because Sora, like, not only does Sora understand that, like, that he has, like, spent his time with his friends well, but he also understands as long as he stays connected to them, as long as he keeps his heart connected with the people he loves, he will see them again. Like, Sora has faith that he will see everyone again, and that's sort of, like, why he's able to, like, pass away at the end happily. And I just think that's really powerful, because not only is that a good message for both kids and adults that, like, you're gonna have to say goodbye to people you love, but that's not something to be sad about. That's something to, like, to remind you to enjoy the time you do have. And as long as you stay connected, as long as you keep those people in your heart, you'll always be connected to them. Those bonds will able to exist beyond the separation. And I just think that's kind of beautiful. So next is the ending to Final Fantasy 15, which is, like, one of my favorite endings in, like, straight up fiction. I think it's just straight up perfect, and it's sort of the reason why Final Fantasy 15 is my second favorite piece of media, even though it does kind of have some flaws. And what I love about it is it sort of, like, it perfectly shows the main message of Final Fantasy 15, which is that, like, a king's duty is to ultimately, like, give himself for the sake of his people. Because, like, Noctis at the end chooses to sacrifice himself. He chooses to accept his destiny in order to save his people from the Star Scourge. And, like, I think what makes that so powerful is not only the just sheer raw emotion of, like, Noctis saying goodbye to his friends and, like, giving that heartbreaking goodbye, but without, like, he does it without being bitter or angry or resentful. He just sort of, like, he's not sad because of what's happening to him. He's sad because he won't be able to see these people he loves. But he is sort of, like, accepts it because he knows in order to protect these people he loves, he has to, like, say goodbye to them. Which I think is, like, not only a good showcase of Noctis' character, but it's also a good showcase of, like, what Final Fantasy 15 is at its core. But I also love about the ending is the fact that, like, throughout Final Fantasy 15, Noctis basically is sent through hell. Like, he loses his kingdom, his father is killed, his fiancée is murdered in front of him, and he loses 5 years of his life. And he's sort of, like, but despite all that suffering, despite all that pain, he doesn't become resentful or bitter like Arden. Instead, he chooses to put his people first. He chooses to, like, do the thing a king would do and accept his cruel fate for the sake of his kingdom, for the sake of his people, because they have given everything to protect him, and now it's his turn to give everything to protect them. And I just think that's so beautiful. Like, the ending itself is just, like, animated so beautiful. Like, the visuals of, like, Noctis taking in all the weapons of his ancestors, finally being pierced by his own father's ghost for him to ascend to that power. And, like, and that is very so crumbling after he destroys the Star Scourge once and for all. It's just such visually so beautiful, as well as, like, it's beautiful, but it's also tragic, but it doesn't, like, the two work in perfect harmony, but it doesn't necessarily feel like a completely sad ending, because at the end, Noctis is still in some way rewarded by being reunited with Luna in the afterlife. Like, even in the face of all this heartbreak, all this tragedy, all this misery, there's still, like, a reign of happiness. Like, despite having such a cruel fate, in the end, Noctis still gets his happy ending, which I think is especially powerful. And I also do love how before this, Noctis, like, shows empathy and compassion towards Arden. Like, even though Arden has basically destroyed his life and has tortured him for selfish reasons, Noctis still chooses to show him empathy because he, on some level, understands Arden's pain, which I think is, like, always good to see in a hero. And, like, it's sort of, like, kind of what makes their dynamic so good, and sort of what makes the ending good, because Noctis is on some level also doing the sacrifice to free Arden's soul from, like, from his own misery, which I think is powerful. Like, the hero sort of, like, fighting to save everyone, even the villain in some way, I think is, like, really good. Next off is Checkmate from from Persona 5 Royal, which is, like, there are so many reasons why I love this moment, from the use of the song that plays, I Believe, which is, like, my favorite song in the series, as well as, like, the complete and utter friendship speech from, like, all the Phantom Thieves, or Akechi's, like, just shut up and do your job line, which is hilarious. But, like, I think, and I also do love the aspect of, like, Joker fighting just as also on some level fighting to save Maruki, because like even though Maruki is doing what he thinks is right, or like he is in some way like making himself miserable by putting him in this position of godhood that will inevitably separate himself from humanity, and also put a burden that no person should have on it. And like all those aspects I think are really good, because I love the power of friendship. I love the way this cutscene is animated. I love the music. I love like Joker and Maruki's dynamic, in which they both kind of want to save each other but in their own ways. But I think what makes the checkpoint moment so powerful in Persona 5 Royal is it kind of imparts a very important message that like life is painful, life kind of sucks, and there's going to be tons of unfairness, tons of cruelty, tons of just unpleasant, horrible things. But you have to face that. You have to be willing to accept, I wouldn't say accept, but you have to be willing to face all this misery. You have to be willing to grow past it. You can't find an easy answer, because if you try to look for an easy answer instead of facing it head on, you won't be able to grow, you won't be able to change, you won't be able to like actually make a difference. You won't be able to you'll be able to become the person you need to be if you just if you just try to find an easy answer. It's very much a message that like, yeah, life sucks, but you're going to have to face that pain. You're going to have to face the suffering in order to like truly earn that happy ending you want. And that like trying to find an easy answer, trying to like cheat reality isn't going to solve anything. It's not going to fix anything. You're not actually going to grow. Life will not change for the better. It'll just stagnate. In order to truly grow as a person, in order to truly get the happy ending you want, you have to be willing to face this suffering, to face this pain head on, and actually confront it, to actually bring about a real change. And I think that's just a good message for anyone. But it's a message that I particularly find reassuring, because like everybody else, life can be painful, and there's going to be horrible things you're going to face, and there's going to be hard times plenty. But like reminding yourself that that things will eventually get better as long as you're willing to face this pain, as long as you're willing to grow and change, that eventually you'll be able to achieve that happy ending, and you'll be able to touch the stars one day, as long as you're willing to like fight and earn it. As long as you're willing to face the suffering of the world, you can someday reach those stars. You'll one day be able to fly. And I think that's just fucking awesome. So next is my favorite moment from my favorite manga, Fullmetal Alchemist, and it's when Ed chooses to give up the door, where Ed exchanges the door of truth for Alphonse. And what I kind of love about this moment is that like not only like I'd say Edward's best moment, but it's also probably my favorite moment in the series, because like I really just love the line Edward says with "even without alchemy, I still have my friends," because like that's sort of like the lesson Ed learns. Like it's not his alchemy that's important; it's these connections. It's all the friends he's made. Like he doesn't need alchemy to be special. He doesn't need it to live his life. His friends are what make his life value. Like he can do anything. He can like accomplish anything as long as he has them by his side. Which I think is really interesting, because like in a series in which like the alchemy is like such a prevalent part of the world, but also a part of who Ed is, because like Ed's sort of personality and his sort of worldview is all based around alchemy. Like the whole like equivalent exchange, which is his entire life philosophy, is sort of comes from alchemy. And at the end, Ed sort of learns that like it's not the alchemy that's important. What's actually important is the people he loves, the connections he's made, and all the lives he's changed by making all these connections, by forming all these bonds. And I don't know, there's something just so heartwarming about that. For this person who has sort of defined their entire life personality around alchemy, to give it up for the sake of the brother he loves, and not having any regrets, because he realizes that that's not what's important. What's important is his friends, the connections he's made, the sort of things he's accomplished. That's what matters. The people he's met, and the things he's done with them. And I love how the truth is like happy that finally somebody has found the right answer. That's just, I don't know, there's something just so powerful about this, sort of like this God who has been waiting for so long for humanity to learn this lesson, to finally see this kid, this punk brat, sort of figure out the truth and sort of like get that happy ending by sacrificing something that he realizes he never needed in the first place, is just so dang cool. Like, I love it. Just love it. So next up is my favorite moment from Naruto, and sort of the thing that made me fall in love with the series, as well as what's basically my favorite moment, like all Battle Shonen, and it's Naruto reaching out to Obito. And what I love about this moment is, like, my favorite aspect of Naruto has always been the Takano Jutsu and like Naruto's relationship with all the dark parallels of him. Like, my favorite Naruto villains in Naruto are always the ones that are like, what Naruto could be if he, like, chose the darker path, if he forgot his ideals, if he abandoned himself for the world. And Obito works great as he's, like, the final, like, dark Naruto parallel, since not only is he the one who was the most similar to Naruto, like, Obito's original design is just straight up Naruto's design, but the colors are inversed. And so Naruto sort of facing, like, everything he could be if he abandoned his ideals, and, like, in the end coming to understand Obito's pain, and, like, because he's able to recognize that they both share the same dreams, the same ideals, that at their core they're incredibly similar men, Naruto can't just give up on him. He can't just abandon him, because to do so would be to essentially betray everything Naruto is and everything he believes in. So instead of holding on to hatred for hating Obito, because Obito is basically responsible for the death of Naruto's parents, so Naruto should in all rights hate Obito, and yet he doesn't, because he understands that the pain, that they've not only shared the same dreams, but the same pain, the same ideals, and so instead he chooses to reach out to him, to sort of like, to rip that mask off, to rip off the Toby persona, and force Obito to finally acknowledge his true ideals, his true self, what he really wants to be and what he really wants to do. And Naruto, just like, the fact that Naruto is not only able to stick to his ideals in a situation which should be impossible, but choosing to show empathy towards the man who has basically, like, destroyed his life, and instead trying to help him, to try to understand him, is really beautiful. And a lot of people tend to misconcept is, like, Naruto just sort of, like, absolving Obito of all his sins, or, like, sort of, like, not recognizing them. But, like, Naruto himself very much is adamant that he's going to make Obito, like, he's going to make Obito repent for what he did. Like, it's not like, Obito's not going to get off scot-free. He's going to make sure he works. Naruto's going to make sure Obito, like, works for that redemption. And what makes the moment, I think, reach out for me so much is sort of just this idea of, like, genuine optimistic ideals, like, sort of like staying strong and able to make a difference in a world that has been ruled over by cynicism and by dehumanizing others. Like, Naruto refuses to treat his enemies like tools. He refuses to dehumanize them. He's always trying to, like, empathize and understand and connect with them. And Obito, I think, is, like, the best example of Naruto, like, truly coming to understand and help his enemies, and able to, like, bring them onto the right path. And one thing I also love about the moment is like, when Naruto first offers his hand to Obito, is that with the panels, like, I believe it's like, one of the panels is from Naruto's perspective, and the other panel is from Obito's perspective, and the one from Obito's perspective is, like, showing Naruto reaching his hand out to Obito, and the one from Naruto's perspective is Naruto looking at Obito. And it really does this good deal of visualizing that these two men are at their core the same. And that's sort of like why Naruto wants to help Obito, because to reject Obito, to abandon Obito would be the same thing as abandoning himself, and Naruto just would never do that. And I just love that sheer optimism, empathy, kindness, and idealism winning out in the end. Like, that's just, stuff like that is always very powerful to me. Next up is my is the moment that sort of made Gurren Lagann my favorite anime of all time, and it's Simon and Nia's wedding. And I think what I love about this moment is that it is incredibly happy and joyful, but also soul-crushing sad. And the fact that it's able to do both those things is just amazing, because, like, it is hard not to love Simon and Nia as a couple in Gurren Lagann, because they're just so genuinely good for each other. Like, their relationship is so incredibly sweet, and how Nia is able to help Simon when he's at his lowest is amazing. And the fact that Simon goes, he basically does the impossible just to save her. Like, he does everything he can to save her and the world. And it seems at the end that the two are finally going to get their happy ending. And they do for a moment, but then, of course, Nia is ultimately, she dies. Like, she disappears after they get married. She was only able to hold on long enough for them to, like, have their wedding. And it's just, it makes you, when you first watch it, it fucking breaks you. It makes you cry. It makes you question how to keep going, man. It's sad as hell. But it's also, but the sadness doesn't erase the happiness. Like, Simon and Nia were truly happy in this moment they got to spend together. In this moment they got to, like, truly, they got to do the ultimate, one of the ultimate expressions of love in a union of pure love. They got that moment, and that's enough for them. Like, Simon is definitely, like, a bit sad, a bit torn up on side, like, but he accepts it, because, like, because one, he has to accept death in order to fit the ending, but it's also, like, because Nia also would want him to accept, she would want him to keep moving forward, and that's just really damn beautiful. And it's just, like, it's just one of those moments that you can never forget, and I think it's why Gurren Lagann is not just my favorite anime, but, like, an anime that has truly affected and stayed with a lot of people. It's just, it's kind of like just the perfect ending for a series. It's like a perfect moment, and I can never stop those feelings, that feelings of heartbreak, but also absolute joy every time I see this moment. It's generally perfect. So up next is my favorite moment from My Hero Academia, my third favorite manga. So, so MHA was, like, a manga that I really liked and was one of my favorites, but but it wasn't, like, an all-time favorite story until this moment hit. And to explain why it's is going to take a bit. Okay, so I am a huge fan of superheroes. Like, superheroes would be my favorite genre of all time. Like, my favorite, one of my favorite, absolute favorite things in storytelling. And the thing I love about superheroes isn't really them beating up bad guys, but rather the fact that they try to save everyone. That for a superhero, the most important thing isn't beating up the bad guys, but rather helping people by saving them, or, like, either emotionally or physically. And MHA is a series that I think really understands that incredibly well, because, like, the thing that gets Deku all for one is, in the first chapter, is the fact that he ran up to try to save Bakugo when he was in trouble, when nobody else was doing anything. That he wasn't motivated by trying to stop a bad guy, or, like, trying to fight for some sort of justice. Rather, he saw somebody who was in need of saving, somebody who's been but a complete and utter asshole to him, and he saw him in pain, and he had to do something. He had to run and try to save him. And this is something that's consistently shown throughout the series. Like, during the tournament, Deku is more focused on, like, helping Todoroki get through his personal problems than winning the tournament. Or when it came to, like, Eri, he was one of the characters the most dead set on saving her. Even when they first ran into Eri, he was more focused on saving her than actually, like, stopping the criminal. And, like, and the moment that sort of, like, in the reason why this moment in particular sort of solidified MHA as a favorite story is because Deku in this moment wants to save a supervillain. Like, this isn't like before, in which the person he was like trying to save was a innocent person in need of help. This is someone who is, by all accounts, his arch enemy, who has almost killed people he's cared about and has hurt Deku several times. And yet Deku, in this moment, realizes that Shigaraki is somebody in need of saving. A kid who, at his core, was never saved and became the way he was because people chose to ignore him rather than help him. And so Deku, at his core, has to save Shigaraki. He doesn't care that he's a villain. He doesn't care that he is essentially, like, destined to be his arch enemy. Deku wants to save somebody because Deku is the type of person who refuses to stand by when somebody is in need of help. He is the person who will always try to save anybody, no matter what. And that's something I really love about MHA, because it's really a story that understands what superheroes are about at their core. And that's just the absolute fucking coolest to me, okay? I fucking love it. Sure, complete and utter brilliance. Okay, so next up is my favorite moment. It's probably is my favorite moment from Rosario+Vampire, and sort of the moment that made it like one of my favorite mangas of all time. And it's I'm sorry, I'm probably gonna pronounce his name. I'm really sorry about that. It's Tsukune's confession to Mocha. And what I love about this is for several reasons. One, I am a die-hard hopeless romantic. I love romance so much. I can never get enough. And Tsukune and Mocha is legit my favorite romance in all fiction. My favorite couple. And I love this moment, and it made me just, like, love Rosario+Vampire. It gave me this undying love for this series. Because it sort of shows me what that series was all about, and it showed me why this is an important series for me. Because the core message of Rosario+Vampire is that in order to truly love somebody, you have to completely understand and accept them. And I think that's not only a very powerful, important message, but I love it because, like, Tsuken at this moment has been... Because, like, at the beginning of the series, there was an instance where Tsuken failed to understand Mocha and he got her hurt. And so ever since then, he's been always trying his best to understand her. And at this point in the story, Tsuken has come to completely learn Mocha's past. In particular, he learned that the outer Mocha personality is an artificial personality created by the Rosario. And at first, that puts him in despair. That makes him doubt if she's even real or if his feelings for her are even valid. But then when he sees the outer Mocha crying, having an existential breakdown due to the disappearance of her mother and her lack of in the holes in her memory, Tsuken comes to not only completely understand Mocha, but to accept her wholeheartedly. He doesn't care if she's an artificial personality. He's not going to choose between the outer Mocha or the inner Mocha. He loves them both. And at this point in the story, he has come to completely understand Mocha, and so he finally confesses all of his love for her, all of his feelings for her, and that he truly wishes to be by her side forever. And not only is that just like, that just hits so hard for me, not just because of how extremely romantic it is, not because it just shows what a damn good person Tsuken is, but also it truly shows that Tsuken loves Mocha without a doubt. Like, that's real, genuine love. And that's just like, as somebody who's still looking for someone, as someone who, like, believes in all these, like, romantic ideals about love, this just, it hits so damn hard, and I love it. I can never stop loving this moment, and I'll never stop getting teary-eyed when I see this spread. It's just, it's perfect, okay? I love it. I love it. Okay, I can't stop loving it. Okay, and now time for the very last moment. My favorite... Okay, so warning, major spoilers for 13 Sentinels. Just FYI, though, you should probably expect spoilers for all of these things. But, so 13 Sentinels is probably... Even though there are plenty of video games that I like more than 13 Sentinels, it has one of my favorite stories in video games. And the reason why is because of its ending, which I would best describe as, like, the perfect happy ending. Like, it's basically a happy ending for every character in the story. And the reason why that works so well is because 13 Sentinels is very much a story about, like, not only several important things like the passing of the torch, the importance of the new generation growing beyond the old generation, humanity's ability to always overcome strife, But the reason why I think I love this happy ending is also because like there's a bunch of like cute couple. Almost every character in this game ends up hooking up by the end, and I fucking love that because I fucking love romance and I love love and all that junk. But also because like these characters have basically had to go through hell in order to get this happy ending. They have had to deal with existential crises, learning that their reality is a lie, but choosing to like still value that reality, and even though it's fake people. But also the fact that like there's been decades and generations of meaningless and pointless death and suffering as a result of the cycle of the robot kaiju like constantly destroying the city and new clones being made and all this, and like constantly going through all this strife, all this suffering, and at the end these characters are finally able to like end it. They're able to like finally grasp their future. They're able to get that happy ending after decades and decades of pointless, meaningless suffering. And I even love how like the antagonists of the games even get a happy ending. Like they're able to like reunite with the people they've lost and like sort of achieve that happy ending they want. Because like nobody in this game I say is a completely bad person, except for one guy. But he's an AI. He doesn't fucking matter. But yeah, and the fact that like I think the best part about the ending is the reunion between 426 Juro and Chihiro. Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry. I'm having trouble remembering the names, but yeah, but like the reunion between like these two goofballs, and like I sort of love it because like they're established in the story that their romance has already ended tragically. They've already got these tragic ends, and it seems like it should be impossible for them to like reunite it and get this happy ending. But they get it anyway. They're able to like actually get this happy ending in which everybody gets what they want. Everybody gets to be with the person they love. And I think that's genuinely brilliant. It's genuinely heartwarming. It just does such a good job at showing that like humanity, even after all this struggling, after all this strife, after all this pain, they will always endure. They will always continue to fight. And they will try to reach a truly happy ending. That they're not just going to give up in the face of all this pain and suffering. That humanity is going to continue fighting, and it's going to continue making connections, and it's going to continue improving and growing and evolving and changing and becoming better. We don't just stagnate. We don't just decay. We improve. We find connections. We fall in love. We grow. We make families. We become better people. We form bonds and connections and everything meaningful. And we do, even after all this pain and suffering, we do at the end reach a happy ending. We find something meaningful, something important. We're able to like overcome. Sometimes, if we generally work together, if we generally love each other, and we generally work together, we can achieve the impossible. We can get a perfect happy ending, because that is what humanity is capable of. We don't just wither away. We don't just stagnate. We become better people every day, and we're always going to continue growing, and someday we can reach a perfect ending. And I bet I just repeat myself a lot. Sorry. But yeah, those are like my favorite moments and my favorite stories, and just what they all mean to me. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sorry it's not my usual content, and I'm sorry I haven't been able to make an analysis video in such a long time. College is hard, life is difficult, and sometimes you just want to be lazy and lay on bed all day. Sorry about that. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sorry for the rambles and the repetitions and the being generally annoying part. And if you want to see more of my content, I definitely recommend subscribing and giving this video a like. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. And also, have an amazing day, because you're awesome.